We concluded the first part by revealing the truth about the Eskimos, leading to the beginning of Dhul-Qarnayn's journey. We will now continue by exploring the truth about the land behind the two mountains and beyond, and its connection to the eternal northern land. In the first segment of this documentary, we showed that the people upon whom the sun rises without a barrier are the northern inhabitants of the 4 islands behind the Sea of Darkness, known today as the North Pole, extending westward to the borders of Antarctica. The third journey, which is the most controversial and subject to interpretation, led Dhul-Qarnayn to the region between the 2 barriers, where he encountered a people with extinct languages. The dam that Dhul-Qarnayn built remains one of the most mysterious and debated elements of his story. The Qur'an describes its construction in precise detail as a response to the plea of a people suffering from the corruption of Gog and Magog. When they offered him money, Dhul-Qarnayn refused to take tribute and instead asked for their help through manpower and raw materials. He commanded them to bring blocks of iron, and once he had leveled the space between the 2 mountain sides referred to as the 2 barriers, he had them blow on the iron until it turned into fire. Then he asked for molten copper and poured it over the iron to fuse it together. He thus created a massive structure described in the Qur'an as a Redm, a barrier stronger and more solid than a mere dam, such that Gog and Magog could neither scale it nor pierce through it. God says, so they were not able to scale it, nor could they pierce it. Between them was a narrow pass. Behind the mountains was a dark cloud that obscured the light of the sun and moon. The word Redm between the 2 barriers indicates the nature and form of the passage from which Gog and Magog would emerge from their land into ours. God described their exit in one verse as being from between 2 dams, and in another as from between 2 mountain sides, Saddain. This implies that the path Gog and Magog used was a pass between great mountains, separating the 2 lands a fortified barrier with a passage. The evidence for this is that when the people complained to Dhul-Qarnayn, they only asked him to block that one pass. If there had been another route, Gog and Magog would have taken it. God says, until he reached a pass between 2 barriers after sealing the passage, God says, so they were not able to scale it, nor were they able to pierce it. This means Gog and Magog could not climb the mighty mountains, nor could they breach the dam to reopen the passage until the time of the final promise, when they will break through, the dam will collapse, and they will pour out over our land from every elevation. God says, and they will surge from every elevation. Dhul-Qarnayn's choice to build a Redm instead of a simple wall proves that the passage was the only way in, and he sealed it completely. The barrier, made of iron and molten copper, could not be broken and stood at a height that prevented climbing. This aligns perfectly with the Quranic description. The most likely location that matches this geographical description of a wall or massive barrier encircling the Earth is Antarctica. Many believe that this wall is the visible ice wall found upon reaching the region. However, this is a mistaken belief. The mountains that separate our land from other lands lie at the outer limits of Antarctica and surround the Earth from all directions, just as depicted in Al-Idrisi's map. May God have mercy on him. Antarctica is a vast and expansive land that includes many regions, some of which are green and not covered by eternal ice. This is what American Admiral and pilot Richard Byrd discovered and spoke of in the 1950s, when he claimed that beyond Antarctica lie continents larger than the United States. However, these lands are merely an extension of our world and are not the second great land behind the massive dam where Gog and Magog reside. The Quranic verse described Gog and Magog as corruptors, and the prophetic narrations state that they are from the offspring of Adam, peace be upon him. Today, many claim that they are monsters, insects, or jinn. These interpretations stem from brainwashing and deception, particularly due to how the shape of the earth and sky has been portrayed by what we call NASA cinematic productions. Texts indicate that their numbers are enormous. In one hadith, it states that each of them has 1,000 sons, and all of them carry weapons. We have established that Dhul-Qarnayn's dam was built over a single pass between the two barriers. This was their only outlet into our land, indicating that their land is dozens or hundreds of times larger than ours, sufficient to provide them with food, drink, and space. Thus, when the dam is breached, they will emerge from every direction and flood the earth, except for Mecca, Medina, and Jerusalem, from which God will bar them. The significance of the dam goes beyond being a historical or geographical structure. It holds profound meaning in Islam. Its collapse and the emergence of Gog and Magog are among the major signs of the Day of Judgment. It symbolizes the boundary between order and chaos, between known time and the end of history. This physical barrier between worlds resonates with the cosmology of the Inuit Eskimo people, who believe in multiple realms beneath the sea, inside the earth, and in the sky. Their stories mention gates and barriers, some representing edges like the sea ice fringe, caves and mountains inhabited by beasts. Some tales even describe guardians of these realms. These deeply rooted stories among the Inuit are not new. They are the inheritance of an ancient civilization, perhaps as old as Mount Shomisan. But these tales were corrupted by myths and legends after emerging from an account passed down by the first generation about a traveler who roamed the earth from Mount Mumeru to its furthest reaches at the ancestors of the eternal ice and the Great Dam. In examining Inuit legends, we find mysterious figures like the hero Kiviuk, the eternal traveler who journeyed the world, faced supernatural beings, and moved between realms in mysterious ways. Could his journeys be a distorted echo of real travelers who reached those remote lands? All ancient civilizations spoke of the barrier between worlds. In Norse mythology, there is the Bifröst bridge connecting the human realm to other realms, acting as a guard against chaos like the Dam of Dhul-Qarnayn. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, texts mention gates to the underworld at the end of the earth. In Irish mythology, there is a magical mist that separates the world of humans from the land of eternal youth, and in Greek legends, the Pillars of Hercules marked a gateway to other lands. This recurring theme of barriers between different worlds appears in every culture, and may trace its origin back to the journey of Dhul-Qarnayn, a man from the first age of humanity, whose story is known only to a few, and whom God informed our prophet Muhammad about, revealing some of his secrets and journeys. God granted him the means, which may have included instantaneous travel, explaining how he reached lands inaccessible by conventional means. All tales of gates, dams, and barriers beyond worlds may have originated from echoes of Dhul-Qarnayn's story, though later mingled with myth. The people he met at the junction of the two barriers were described as barely understanding speech, implying isolated human groups with extremely strange languages. The Inuit call themselves the real people, while they refer to others as those who speak strange tongues, representing a linguistic and cultural barrier. These people whom Dhul-Qarnayn met in Antarctica may have been the first thread of civilization there. Studies suggest the existence of a northern civilization older than Hyperborea, possibly from over 10,000 years ago. The people who brought iron and molten copper possessed advanced technology for constructing the dam impossible to achieve with primitive tools. Building the dam required intense heat to melt iron and blend it with copper. Dhul-Qarnayn came with knowledge described by God as the means, and this may have sparked a civilization that rose after him, which matches the Inuit tales of a super-civilization in the eternal ice. Only God knows the truth, but we hypothesize about the time before the first human era. It is certain that the earth was inhabited by accountable beings before humans, as inferred from the angel's question, "Will you place upon it one who causes corruption and sheds blood?" implying they had witnessed such events before. Some scholars say the jinn preceded humans and were also held accountable, some of them corrupted, others believed, and God sent angels to fight them, driving them into mountains and seas. Then Adam and his descendants were appointed as successors on earth. Could such a long era have passed without leaving a trace of civilization? Perhaps some of the ancient remains we see today and cannot explain belong to pre-human civilizations. The descent of Adam, peace be upon him, to earth was not primitive, for God said, "And he taught Adam the names all of them." Thus, the beginning was not in ignorance, but in knowledge and understanding. God subjected the earth and the skies to him. At the end of Dhul-Qarnayn's story, we find that God granted him the means to everything and immense knowledge. God made the earth subservient to him and granted him power over what he wished. So he traveled east and west, calling to God alone with no partner.